Hello and welcome to my dungeon. This is Winter's Daughter, an adventure set in the Dolmenwood setting, written by Gavin Norman for Old School Essentials, so it's widely compatible with basic and expert sets of D&D rules and will run fine with a wide variety of old school rule systems, but especially Old School Essentials. We actually played this adventure with the Shadowdark system with the pre-generated characters from the Shadowdark Quick Start, and that worked out fine as well. There was nothing that I couldn't convert into a role just on the fly. I recently got to run this adventure on convention, and me and my players had a blast playing through it. So I thought it was time to make a video about my thoughts, do a GM's perspective on this adventure. This is something that interests you. Consider liking the video down below and subscribing to my channel. Thank you. Now let's get into this. It says here on the back it is a romantic fairy tale dungeon adventure for characters of 1st to 3rd level. And that sums it up really neatly. From the background story, it is about an undying forbidden love between a mortal human knight and an undying fairy princess that happened to find love even though they were on opposing sides in a war. But that was almost a millennia ago. And now the characters are diving into the burial mound of the noble knight, where they will eventually find his ghost and maybe find it in their hearts to reunite him with his bride in the realm of fairies. This is a very charming adventure. Most combat encounters are completely optional and can be solved through clever role-playing instead of swinging the dice, which makes it perfect for younger players, but it can also be enjoyed by adults. From its length and complexity, the dungeon and its challenges makes it perfect for a one-shot and can easily be finished within 3 to 4 hours. There's not a huge chance here that the players will run off in a random direction and get lost. The particular group I ran this adventure for had barely any combat at all. The only creatures they ended up fighting were worm tongues. Worms big as cats that one time randomly dropped from the ceiling and one time were alerted by the noise that the PCs made. But these creatures were not a big challenge for my group of level 2 characters. The traps and puzzles, which is sometimes one and the same, they're like environmental obstacles that you have to overcome, can all be solved through clever thinking and applying of a bit common sense. They are not too hard, and they're a good example of these types of challenges, of traps that are actually puzzles. My group of characters ended up to be mostly good-hearted, lawful characters that actively tried to avoid combat and speak to the NPCs and even speak to goblins and other monsters. I think this adventure might be a lot harder with your average group of murder hobos. If you go through this adventure sword swinging and skull splitting, it will be quite difficult indeed. What really impressed me about this adventure is how effective its writing is. There's not a word wasted in here. When I came to use the words written in here and the descriptions written here, even though they are just in bullet points, the description just flowed from this out of my mouth. Yeah, let me give you an example. We've got the description of the titular Winter's Daughter, Princess Snowfall like Dusk. And it says in here, beautiful, ageless, otherworldly, blonde hair, the color of the winter sun, pale skin, scintillating like fresh snow, blue eyes, crystalline, clad in white, floaty gown, star on her brow, a flashing crystal bound with silver cord worth 300 GP, regal, dignified and beloved, and resigned to her fate. And when running this on the table, it would become something like, come to the room and you see a beautiful maiden sitting on the bed. Her blonde hair, the color of the winter sun, is floating in an unseen astral wind. Her pale skin is scintillating like fresh snow, and her crystalline eyes regard you with dignified and benevolence. She is wearing a beautiful white wedding dress, and upon her brow is a crystalline star. And like this, the adventure really makes the most from its 25 pages. One thing I found very helpful when running this was to print out the maps presented in PDF on A4, so I could have them right next to the book, make them very easy to reference. Also on this map you will find a short description of the rooms, but the detailed description is only within the book, and next to the detailed room description there are no pictures of the rooms. So having the map right next to the book is very helpful for reference. So yeah, Winter's Daughter, a very efficiently written, beautiful fairy tale-like adventure of undying romance to use with any old school role-playing system that can be solved with very little violence and bloodshed. And I think this is the perfect adventure to lead for a group of young players during the winter holidays. I bid thee safe travels, dreamers, until we shall meet again.